Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Hey, my rifle, this is my gun, this is for body, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Oh, baby, Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show. Every Friday, we get a chance to talk about what is really one of our favorite issues here on the program, and that is gun rights and Second Amendment rights, laws, tips, tricks, practical stuff. We do it all. And we're glad that you joined us today on this beautiful day. Beautiful day. I'm in Fairbanks, and we were having this conversation last night with a couple of my friends and coworkers, and they're just like, "Oh, you just love coming back to Fairbanks." And I just said, look, I love the people in Fairbanks, but I hate the weather in Fairbanks. You could call me a wuss, you could do whatever you want, but I got here. It was 15 degrees at my house when I left, and it was 1 degree in Fairbanks when I got here. And by that time, my wife had called me, and she said it was actually 30 degrees at the house at that point. And, it was 3 below this morning. It's fine. It's fine. I can handle it. But I'm just reminded about one of the reasons why I left the interior. Love the people. Oof, you can keep the rest of it, though. You can just keep the rest of it. It'll be good to see everybody, though. I'm going to be broadcasting live today. The Open North American Championships, which is the oldest and longest-running sled dog race in the world, is going to be broadcasting live from the Mushers Hall up in the interior today. And so if you want to listen to that, you're somewhere else across the state, maybe you've never heard of the Open North American. I know it's going to be streamed on the website for KFAR, the radio station here in Fairbanks. And so, that it should be fun. Next 3 days, going to be standing around outside calling the dog races for, if the Iditarod is an endurance race, if the Iditarod is an Indianapolis 500, then the Open North American Championships is the quarter-mile drag racing. It is a short run, 20 miles over 3 days. They do 3 different heats of the same race, and it's always fun. And it's actually nice that it's kind of cool because it's easier on the dogs. If it gets, I've done Open North Americans where it's 25 degrees, almost 30 degrees, and it's really hard on the dogs. So I'm not too bent out of shape that it's a little cooler today, but I've also broadcast the Open North American at 30 below. That sucks. I'll just say that right there. Anyway, good morning and welcome to you. Let's get back over to the firearms news. We're going to be joined in just a few moments by Dr. John Lott, the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. He's actually offering some testimony up on SB173 from Shelly Hughes, which, of course, is the bill that would allow specific personnel at school districts who want to voluntarily to be armed to help protect the kids. And it has some requirements for training and other things that they have to adhere to. And he is going to be, I guess, talking to the legislature, but he's going to give us his thoughts on it because he's now had a chance to review it and talk about it, and we'll get his take on that, plus other things that are going on out in the world. He's been working on some other stuff as well And it should be a really, really good discussion. And he just had a debate at the University of Wisconsin with Sanford Levison, and it should be we'll get a recap on that as well, and you can hear what he has to say on that. So it should be a good morning, and then of course in hour 2 we'll open the phone lines up. We'll take some calls. We'll talk about some things, some of the headlines in the news, and then finish up with Willie Waffle. That's the whole thing. You're probably all familiar with the Veritas Project, right? I mean, James O'Keefe and his hidden camera exposés that he's done on all different kinds of things. He has ruffled some feathers. He has raised some eyebrows and done some stuff. Well, he has just caught another person off guard. I just don't. Do you not recognize James O'Keefe anymore? I'm just asking for a friend. You're having conversations with him and not realize you're being recorded and saying things that you may regret later. He has released his latest undercover video a couple days ago, in which a Defense Department official named Jason Beck details his distaste for gun ownership and his belief that the Second Amendment should be repealed. This is somebody working at the DOD, the Department of Defense, under Secretary Lloyd Austin. He's the Associate Director of Total Force Requirements and Sourcing Policy, which means he's in procurement, essentially. But he went so far as to tell James O'Keefe that the National Guard could be tasked with rounding up the 400 million or so firearms in the hands of American citizens, according to Cam Edwards over at Bearing Arms. Beck is quoted as saying, "I wonder if you see a similar solution to like school integration, where they did have to mobilize the National Guard. I mean, how many in the National Guard, maybe personally were opposed to integration, but still followed orders and made it happen?" Which, anytime I hear the just following orders thing, all I can think of is, I may have been personally opposed to it, but I still followed orders. Yeah, just like all them Germans. Not to mention the fact that he apparently has misremembered the history, because when this happened, integration happened back in 1957. The first time the Guard was called up was by Arkansas Governor Orville Fabus, who called them up to prevent the integration of Central High School. And then Eisenhower brought in the 101st Airborne. He invoked the Insurrection Act to be able to use troops and then federalize the Arkansas National Guard. So, I mean, maybe maybe he didn't misremember it. Maybe he did it on purpose so that they could break the Constitution, and that was okay. I mean, look, it's not that surprising that you've got bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., who work in areas that I think is pretty well understood that people would be resistant to. But the further we get away from the foundation of the country, the further we get away from those founding principles and those beliefs, the further I believe that we're going to get away from people who cherish and believe in those rights. I mean, we've all heard of the 26 Palm survey, right? I mean, this is the survey that was done. This is the survey that was done at 29 Palms by I think he was a West Point grad. Anyway, he was doing a study, and he put a survey out to all the folks at 29 Palms, and basically said, if you were ordered to, it was a thought exercise. If you were ordered to basically confiscate all the guns, what would you do? If you were ordered to go out and confiscate guns from American citizens, what would you do? The good news is 74% of them said that they wouldn't do it. The bad news is 26% said they would. Now, that survey is like 35 years old. This is a while ago. I guarantee you, if you did that survey today, it would probably be, there'd probably be even more people who would be willing to do it, because, let's face it, some of these people are just there. I'm just doing my job. just doing my job. I'm just here for the paycheck and the GI Bill. I'm just here to do this or that, or, now there are plenty of people who are patriotic. There's plenty of people who believe in their oath to the Constitution and everything else. But I mean, just kind of look at where we're at today. I would lay good money on the fact that if somebody did the 29 Palm survey today, it wouldn't be 74% said that they wouldn't do it. I think it would still be a majority, but I think it would probably be closer maybe to 60% or something. And that's a little troubling. And then you get these little piddly, booger pickers down there in Washington, D.C., like this guy, Jason Beck, who works for the Department of Defense in the office of the Secretary of Defense, saying we should take that. Now, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but he's also, again, coming from that background and utilizing that opinion in his procurement processes and in whatever power he wields in that office. So while this is not shocking and surprising that he holds this viewpoint, because again, there's a lot of people in Washington who believe that, and the guys who are back in the what do they call the REMFs, right? They're REMF. The guys who are actually in the back, they're not out on the pointy end of the stick. They, generally speaking, are not as conservative or maybe as patriotic as those on the other end. So this is not that surprising, but confirming your worst fears is still not great, right? Confirming your fears that there are people in government who would love to use the impetus. I mean, and he's the one that suggested bringing the National Guard in, to which I would say, by the way, good luck. I mean, you realize the National Guard is made up of people from those communities, right? I mean, unless you did like they did during the Hurricane Katrina, when it wasn't the New Orleans Guard that came in to try and disarm the people. It was the Oklahoma Oklahoma and Tennessee. I think it was two different from neighboring states, which was kind of sneaky, quite honestly. They did that because they knew that the Oklahoma Guard people would probably not want to disarm their own people, including friends, families, relatives, neighbors. But the fact that this guy brings that up is, I mean, I guess it's just confirming of some of our worst theoretical fears that that's going to happen. But I mean, again, all I can think of is with friends like that, who needs enemies, right? With friends like that, who needs enemies? That's all I can say. That's all I can say. All right, we're going to jump into this here. We're coming up on the break, and Dr. John Lott is going to be joining us. Which reminds me that I've got a bunch of different bells, and I'm in a different place. I'm not in my normal studio, and so I got a lot more buttons to push here when we go to commercial break. Well, that's just how it goes. All right, so we're gonna be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Dr. John Lott is up next. Back with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. All right. I'm just checking, make sure everything is good to go, making sure everybody went to commercial break and we're all good. I see Dr. Lott is in the green room. He just popped up. He's teasing me with some nice outdoor location here. That's crazy. I mean, it's only 2 below here, but he's out there doing it. Brian, what is it that you just posted in the chat room? I see it's something about 29 palms. Is that the actual 29 palm survey? I'd love to see what that is. Okay. I'm just going through here. All right. I see what you guys are talking about. We're all ready to go. Is the Fairbanks studio bigger? Yes, the Fairbanks studio is much bigger. My studio is essentially 4x8. This thing's like 10 by 20. It's a huge studio. Anyway, good morning, good morning, good morning. Where the heck is everybody? I don't know. Maybe they're sleeping in, ready to go. All right, let me go over and we'll let's do this. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna get it squared away. Dr. John Lott is over there. Let's test. Let's bring him on board and see what he has to say this morning. Good morning, Dr. Lott. Can you hear me?
I can. Good morning. How you doing?
Good. Oh, you sound good. You sound real good. All right. You all ready to go? And we'll dive into this and be ready here in just a minute, okay?
Sounds great.
Okay, good. I'm going to pull you back into the green room real quick, and we will be good to go. Does it have heat? You look cold. Yeah, I'm just bundled up because I'm going to go out and do the dog races. So I kind of threw everything on this morning, and I haven't taken it off. So it's all good. Okay. All right. What are the stories we're going to do when we're done with Dr. Lott? There's a discussion on the there's you see this thing that lax gun laws are now being blamed for the violence in Haiti. That the Guardian was like, in Haiti, it's all because the U.S. It's all they all came from Florida. Because, of course, you couldn't bring in guns from anywhere else into Haiti other than Florida. It's the lax gun laws in the U.S. are all and again, I'm seeing some of the videos, and there's a lot of automatic weapons over there, and I don't see a whole lot of automatic weapons being imported from Florida. That's a whole different setup over there. But I guess your mileage may vary at that point. Okay. There we go. Getting a little bit bigger. All right. All righty. And then, of course, at the end of the show today, we're going to talk with Willie, and we will be all good to go. I'm just double checking here. It's a lot more going on in the studio when I'm broadcasting remotely than I am when I'm in my own studio. So we are 90 seconds out right now. That was the other thing I forgot to do. Let me excuse me while I whip this out here. See if I can find the timer tool. Okay. All right. So we are about just a minute away from rejoining here with Dr. John Lott, and we will be kicking things off. I don't have it's true. I don't have as many screens as I do as I do back home. There's only like 3 screens here, but there's, at home I got 6, and I need every one of them. When you're doing it all by yourself with no engineer, it becomes a whole new thing. So Melissa's right. She watched me set up last night. Melissa watched me set up in the studio last night, and that's just how it is. Okay, 25 seconds. Dr. John Lott's our guest. We're going to be pumping into this here in just a second. We're going to talk about SB173. We'll also talk about his debate recently at the University of Wisconsin and anything else he feels like talking about this morning. We're going to let it all out here. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Okay, welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Duke Show, broadcasting live today from Fairbanks, Alaska, up here in the interior. Getting ready to do all the dog racing things. But we've got our guest on the line. We're ready to go. Dr. John Lott, president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, joins us this morning to discuss SB173, which is the school bill under State Senator Shelly Hughes. He's also had a recent debate in the University of Wisconsin. We could talk about that. And then anything else that's just catching his attention in the headlines We love having him on, and we welcome him to the program. Good morning, Doctor. How are you?
Doing great. Good to talk to you again. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate it as always. It's always a pleasure to have you on to talk about it. Doctor, you got a chance to you got invited to review the new bill SB173 here in the state of Alaska from Senator Hughes, and to give your thoughts on it. We're seeing some of these bills have been making their rounds across the United States. Utah has actually already instituted this, and so we're not necessarily treading on unknown territory, but there's already a little bit of a hue and cry about how could we. When we talked about this last week, there were some comments from folks who were basically saying, what, do you just want the teachers to shoot the children kind of thing? And just some really crazy hyperbolic stuff. But you've had a chance to examine this and see how it's been done across the country. And as a guy who's famous for your numbers and your statistics, I value your opinion on this. So let's get started and talk about what your thoughts are on SB 173.
Well, you mentioned Utah. Utah and New Hampshire have rules that any teacher that has a permit can carry a concealed handgun at school. There are 20 states altogether that have rules that allow teachers and staff to carry. It varies a fair amount across the states. Most of the states require that you have to have either the school superintendent or a school board allow designated teachers to be able to go and carry. And that's similar to the bill that's being proposed in Alaska. Now, what you normally have happen is that school boards are usually controlled by teachers' unions and what have you, and they're usually fairly restrictive. But the thing is, right now, we have literally well over 10,000 public schools across the country that allow teachers and staff to carry. You have essentially of all the schools in Utah and New Hampshire. You have states like Texas, where about 40% of the schools, similarly in Oklahoma. Ohio's been very high too. So, you look across the country and you have had a lot of experience over many years with teachers and staff being able to go and carry. And, I've read the legislative debates that you see in other states, and they bring up similar things to what you were just talking about. And it's basically summarized by things that might possibly go wrong. Well, we don't need to guess. We don't need to guess if a teacher loses their temper and would shoot the students, or loses control of the gun and a student gets a hold of it and does something bad with it. The reason why we don't have to guess is because we have the data, we have the experience in all these places, and it's something that simply doesn't happen. Is it possible that it could happen? Yeah, sure, it's possible. But you need to have actual examples, particularly you'd think they could at least point to one or two examples of the types of fears that they have with all these schools that have had these for all the years that they've had them. And they can't point to any. And so, it's hard for me to put a lot of weight on that. What you can say is that since the year 2000, and despite all these schools having armed teachers and staff, there's not been one attack where anybody's been wounded or killed anywhere near during school hours at any school that allows teachers and staff to carry. All the attacks that have occurred where people get hurt are occurring in schools that don't allow teachers and staff to carry. And I've said I disagree with a number of conservatives on how to deal with school shootings, because a lot of conservatives will go and want to have one uniformed armed police officer in a school. And, I guess the way I view it is we have air marshals. Would anybody put an air marshal in uniform?
Right.
The guys who sit on the plane and fly back and forth across the Atlantic or the Pacific? I assume not. And I assume it's pretty obvious why you wouldn't put the air marshals in uniform, because you don't want the terrorist there to be able to readily identify who it is that could be able to go and stop them. And so what happens is that if you make the person readily identifiable, have the police, the single police officer in uniform. You're giving him an almost impossible job because you give huge tactical advantages to the attacker.
Right.
If you have a school with multiple buildings, the attacker can wait for the officer to leave one building and go to another building before he attacks, or the attacker can move to another target himself, or if he insists on attacking in that particular location, what he can do is take out the police officer first, because if he's the only one with a gun, then once the terrorist goes or the killer goes and takes out the officer, he has free reign to go after other people there. So if you're going to have one police officer at a school guarding, my advice is don't put them in uniform. Don't make them readily identifiable. Give them a job that has them blend in, like a staff position or a PE coach or something. But don't let the general public or the students know who it is. And rather than having a sign in front of the school that says this school is a gun-free zone, have a sign in front of the school that says, warning, select teachers and staff at this school carry concealed handguns, and will use them to go and protect the students and others there.
Right.
So,
and that's something that's actually happening in Texas. They actually have, I've seen pictures of signs outside of schools in Texas. It says some staff at this facility are armed, basically. And you make a lot of sense. I mean, we've often referred to that as why don't you just put a just shoot me sign over people in those kind of situations, when they're obviously the target would be the only target or the most visible target for any attacker. They'd be the ones that they would want to take out first. And I think that's important. Now, you mentioned something, I think just in passing during that you said there is not a single example of something like this happening, but you were very specific. You said during school hours. And I think one of the reasons for that is because a lot of times when they talk about school shootings and using statistics, and again, you're an expert on statistics and numbers and stuff like that, but they're using things that are happening in the playground, after school, at night, things that are just on the edge of the yard, things that are going on, when the kids aren't there and things like that, right? I mean, those numbers are used to bolster this idea of quote unquote school shootings.
right. So, for example, the one shooting that occurred at a school that had armed teachers and staff occurred at 2:30 in the morning in the parking lot between two drug gangs, basically. And so there's no teacher around, there's no real involvement of a teacher being able to go and stop such an attack. And so that's the reason why I distinguish that there.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, they will include somebody at 11 o'clock who pulls in PM, who pulls into a parking lot and commits suicide there. Or they'll many frequently times include attacks that occurred near the school. It's just really outrageous how broadly these types of things are defined. Now, there's one other point that I wanted to bring up, and that is, it's not just the numbers on the rate that attacks occur in places that have armed teachers and staff versus where they're not allowed. One can look at the statements from these mass murders. I mean, we at our website at crimeresearch.org, we've collected many statements and diaries and manifestos from these mass murderers about why they pick the target that they do. And these guys are very clear. And it's just outrageous to me that the national media just refuses to go and discuss this part of these manifestos. But they'll say time after time, you'll have individuals who are suicidal, who feel unappreciated, but they want to get media coverage. They want people to know that they were here. And so what they'll do is they know that the more people they kill, the more media coverage that they're going to get. And they may be crazy, but they're not stupid. They realize that if they go to a place where their victims are defenseless, they're going to be able to go and kill more people. And so you have people like the Sandy Hook killer, which, according to police, had put together a doctoral dissertation on mass public shootings around the world, where he had apparently graphed out the relationship between the number of people killed and the amount of media coverage that they had gotten, in order to prove to himself that if he was able to kill more people, and his goal was to go and kill more people than the Norway killer had killed, who had shot to death more people than any mass public shooting in the United States. He murdered 67 people that way, plus there were other people that he killed in bombs. But then he would get even more international media coverage. But on the second part of this, about how they pick the targets that they do, you can look at something like the Nashville school shooter last year. The Biden administration has refused to release the diary from the mass murderer. But what you have is the statements from the Nashville police chief, who that day of the attack held a press conference where he said that he had read the diary for the mass murderer there.
Right.
And what he found was that the mass murderer actually had another primary target in mind, which was a local mall, but that they had decided not to go there because there were armed people there. And so the murderer picked the school because they thought it would be a soft, unprotected target. And you see that time after time. The Buffalo mass murderer before that, that person had a manifesto where they spent a great deal of time explaining why they picked the target that they did. And he picked it, he said, because he wanted to go to a place with strict gun control, because he was worried that somebody there might be carrying a concealed handgun, and that would make his task of killing people much more difficult. Now, why aren't those things newsworthy? We have lots of cases like that where they're explicit, but you will search in vain for finding any national news coverage of those, that simple fact. Why isn't it newsworthy? I want somebody to give me a benign explanation for why it's not newsworthy, why these people pick these gun-free zones that they pick. And there's one final point I want to make, and that is, I understand the desire to make areas gun-free zones. The notion is that if you simply go and ban guns from an area, you're going to make them safer. But actually, the exact opposite is true. And again, look at something like the Nashville school shooter in Tennessee. If you violate the gun-free zone around schools, you face a prison term of up to 6 years. Well, 6 years for you or I is a huge penalty. Our lives would be completely upended and destroyed if we were a felon and had to serve 6 years in prison. But think of the murderer in this case. Now, it's true that the murderer died at the scene. They were shot to death by the police. But let's say the murderer had lived and was going to be facing 6 life sentences or 6 death penalties. Does anybody really seriously think that saying, okay, if I simply add, take away 6 years from their 7th life, that they'll say, okay, I can live with 6 death penalties or 6 life sentences, but you take 6 years away from my 7th life, and that's just too much. I can't deal with. It's all you've done with these penalties is ensure that the law-abiding good citizens, where these penalties represent real penalties on them, obey the law, and ensure that the murderers will have free reign, that they won't have to worry about anybody else there, because the gun-free zones there ensure that they will be the only person that will be armed and will be able to go and accomplish their task.
Yeah. Well, and we've made that argument many times. Just because a mall's got a sign out front that said this is a gun-free zone, no firearms allowed, you think some criminal who's already decided to kill people is just going to go up and go, oh, well, I can't do it here then, apparently, because that it's ridiculous. But that is the they think it's some kind of magic shield.
Right. Well, the point is, it's not just that the guy ignores it. It is a magnet for them going and doing the attack in those places, because that makes it so that they understand that they'll be the only person that's armed. So it's not just that they ignore it. It's that these actually serve as magnets. So, in most of the states, including Alaska, most of the area you're allowed to carry, right? I mean, only a tiny percentage of Alaska are you banned from being able to go and have a gun for protection. And yet, where do all these attacks occur? All the mass public shootings keep on occurring. Like 94% of the mass public shootings occur in places where guns are banned. Well, so you have almost all these attacks occur in tiny areas. Why is that? Why aren't they evenly distributed across the places? You go and look at mall shootings, and you'll have, the one mall that has signs posted banning permanent concealed handguns. There'll be 8 malls, and there'll be one that posts signs. That's where the attack will occur. Or you have movie theaters.
Right.
You have like the Aurora Batman movie theater shooting. There were 8 enclosed eight movie theaters within a 20-minute drive of the murderer's apartment there. He goes to the only one. It's not the closest. It's not the largest. He goes to the only one that has signs posted banning permanent concealed handguns.
Dr. John Lott is our guest. Doctor, hold the line for a second. We're up against the break. I want to continue this conversation because we know through statistics and through numbers exactly how that works. We'll continue with that and the rest of SB173. Dr. John Lott, our guest, The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. Back with more right after this.
What is that?
Common Sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay, Dr. John Lott is our guest. I'm just deleting some things that need to be deleted here. Dr. Lott, one of the things that when we get back, I want to talk about. I know you've actually looked at this. Here's what surprises me. We in this country, and my wife is one of them, have become these kind of crime junkies, right? True crime and all these, investigative stories and shows that go back and rehash the investigations and everything else. I am surprised that there's not more of an outcry for a look into the minds of some of these shooters. Like you said, most of them are writing some kind of manifesto or their social media posts or their diaries or something like that. And you would think that they'd want to have every psychologist in the country poring over this stuff to see if we could find a solution for this. But instead, they're hiding a lot of this information. And that, I mean, it seems problematic, but it just seems crazy to me that they wouldn't want to have more people poring over this to try and find an actual solution.
Right. Well, I mean, I think they know the solution to this, right? I mean, they think that they believe that if you just get rid of guns, you have the Biden administration just put out finally its report on the Uvalde school shooting. And Biden lists 3 regulations that are needed to stop that attack and others. The first solution he puts forward is background checks on the private transfers of guns. Does anybody ask him or the administration, well, would it have stopped that particular attack? And the answer is no. Would it have stopped any mass public shooting this century if it had been in effect and perfectly enforced? The answer is no. So why is that the first solution that's brought up? And he's not the only one. And Obama, when he was president, would frequently point to that as the primary solution. it's just crazy stuff. I want to do something, but I want to do something that matters. I want to do something that would work. And I look at these things and I see the evidence with regard to gun-free zones and allowing people to be able to go and protect themselves and others. And, it's the media. The media plays a huge role. My guess is the whole debate that we have right now would be dramatically different if the media would go and mention once in a while that we've had another mass public shooting in a place where guns are banned. If they would go and mention once or twice where you have these cases where civilians with permanent concealed handguns stop what otherwise would have been a mass public shooting. Since the beginning of 2020, we have like 40 cases on our website at crimeresearch.org where police have said that the presence of a civilian carrying a permanent concealed handgun stopped what otherwise would have been a mass public shooting. These rarely get news attention. And often when they do,
Right.
the few times that they do get news attention, the media mucks up the story and gets it wrong. We have claims that the United States is somehow unique in terms of mass public shootings. That's simply false too. I'll give you an example since we're talking about schools. Since 2000, the United States has had 8 mass public school shootings where 4 more people killed, not involving some other type of crime like a gang fight over drug turf. And Germany's had 3. Well, the United States has about 340 million people. Germany has 80 million people. So we're more than 4 times. So would people compare the number of murders in Alaska with the number of murders in California or Texas? I assume not.
Right.
I assume what people would do is you'd go and put it in per capita rates. The FBI puts out data all the time on per capita rates of crime. And so, if you were to do that for Germany and the United States, you'd have to multiply the 3 times 4. So they have the equivalent of 12. We have 8. That's a significantly higher rate. You look at Finland. Finland has had 2 K through 12 mass public school shootings. Well, they have a population of 5.5 million. So they have the United States has a population 60 times higher. So if you multiply 2 times 60, they have the equivalent of 120 versus our 8. In Norway, they've had 1. Well, they also have about 5 million people. So you multiply theirs by 60, so they have the equivalent of 60 compared to our 8.
It's crazy. Yeah.
France has had mass public school shootings. You've had other places that have had them too. Russia's had quite a few. Look, I can understand the media doesn't find it as newsworthy to go and talk about attacks in other countries.
Hold the line, John. Hold the line. I'm sorry. We're jumping back in. I'm slave to the clock. Here we go. Getting back into it. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Okay, we're back now. Dr. John Lott is our guest. Crime Prevention Research Center. Man, there was so much stuff there in the break. You'll have to go back and listen on the podcast. It was so good. Some information which we might repeat a little bit of here. But I wanted to come back to again the discussion. Dr. Lott, you've been monitoring this and you've been looking at this. You've looked at all the crimes. You've looked at the statistics. You've seen a lot of the manifestos that probably many people haven't, or the diaries, things that the mainstream media is obviously not covering. And I know at one point you and I talked about the actual numbers of with very specific proof showing that these shooters, whether it's at schools or somewhere else, actually chose it wasn't like a random place that they chose. They specifically chose a place where they knew people would not be armed. And I don't know if the number's been updated, but I seem to remember the number was somewhere around 80% of the shooters were very specific about where they were going specifically because it was a gun-free zone. Is that right? Does that number hold true? Have you seen do you have some updated stats on that?
Well, I don't think it's 80% that we actually have statements. I mean, we have dozens of statements, but I don't think it's, I haven't, I couldn't tell you the exact percent, but I know it's a lot less than 80%. But, you know, not all these people leave diaries and manifestos. Not everybody goes and makes statements to others. I mean, you have everything from the Charleston church shooting, where the person apparently made statements to others about why he picked the target. You have indirect evidence on some, like you have Columbine. Even the New York Times reported that the Dylan Klebold was very upset that Colorado was passing a concealed handgun law that would allow people to carry permanent concealed handguns on school property. And one thing that doesn't get mentioned, you know, why you have Bowling for Columbine, which goes and talks about, you know, makes a big deal about them going bowling before the attack. The day that they chose to do the attack was the day that the state legislature in Colorado was scheduled for final passage of their concealed handgun law that would have allowed people to carry permanent concealed handguns on school property. In fact, I was there. I was in Colorado. I was testifying and talking to state legislators the morning because Doug Dean, who is the majority leader in the state house, had invited me to go and talk there. And you know, it looked like they were going to pass it. But you know, the question you have to ask is why these guys were upset. Apparently they had written their state legislators, at least Klebold had, arguing against them adopting a law that would allow people to carry concealed handguns at school. You know, and pick that day when the legislature was finally going to finish the whole legislation and pass it on to the governor for
Right.
their attack. So, but I'm just saying, you have all the way going back there. But it's just, you know, in the New York Times, even on its front page at the time, though people didn't draw a connection between the date or anything, mentions that these guys were strongly opposed to the concealed handgun law that was being considered by the state legislature. So, you know, anyway, there are lots of cases that you have evidence on that these guys are, you know, maybe, as I said earlier, maybe crazy, but they're not stupid.
Right.
They know. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I did want to get in because we've only got about 4.5 minutes here. You were talking during the break, and although I hate to repeat myself or repeat ourselves, overall, I think what you were saying is so important because, again, we keep seeing all these statistics about school shootings in America. What you're never told is that the number of school shootings, a lot of times, like you said, had to do with gang violence, suicide, things happening after, you know, with no students there, all that kind of stuff. And then you said comparing it to other school shootings in other countries is very eye-opening, and it's something the news media won't do. And you specifically talked about on a per capita basis, on a population basis. So if we can recap that again real quick, you were talking about since 2000, America has had what? An actual where 4 or more students were killed, has had 8 school shootings. Is that the right number? And then you compared it to other parts of the world.
If you define a school mass public shooting as 4 or more people killed in a public place, not involving some other type of crime like a robbery or a gang fight over drug turf, the United States has had 8 of those. The reason why, you know, you have that definition there is the FBI and things like its active shooting reports and others are trying to get at the types of cases that get people's attention. They care about when somebody goes into a school or something with the express intent of just trying to go and kill other people. As opposed, Chicago may have 32 shootings over the weekend, but they don't cover those shootings. They don't give news coverage to them because the reason is because they're virtually all drug gang fights over drug turf. And the media knows that people don't get as invested or care about as much of those as somebody going in and just trying to kill innocent people just to go and kill innocent people. So since the year 2000, the United States has had 8 mass public school shootings. A country like Germany's had 3, but as I said, nobody would compare the total number of murders in Alaska with California, right? You look at the per capita murder rate or crime rates there, and the United States has 340 million people. Germany has 80 million. Well, so if you adjust by a factor of 4, Germany has the equivalent of 12 compared to the United States 8. Finland has had 2 K through 12 mass public school shootings. They have a population of like 5.5 million people. So, it's like 1/60th the population in the United States. So you adjust that, they've had the equivalent of 120 compared to our 8. You look at Norway. Norway has like 5 million people. They've had 1 K through 12 school shooting. Well, that'd still be like 60 to our 8. Countries like Russia have had a lot of mass public school shootings. France has had it. You've had other countries in Europe that have had it. And if you adjust for population, you're going to find on a per capita rate, there are a lot of countries around the world that have much higher per capita rates. But the media, for some reason, refuses to go and put those in terms of per capita rates. And my guess is the whole debate that we have right now would be very different if the media would, one, mention that these attacks occur in places where guns are banned, would go once in a while, talk about cases, because there's lots of cases where civilians have stopped these mass public shootings, what would have been a mass public shooting according to police. And
these are, Dr. Lott, I could have you on for a lot longer because there's a lot of good information here. We are up against top of the hour break, though. So hold the line for just a second here. We'll finish up with you. Folks, we're out of time. Dr. John Lott, our guest, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll be back with more. Hour 2 is dead ahead. Yeah, sorry about that, Dr. Lott. And that's the thing. If we had an honest conversation, and it just seems like, and you and I have talked about this, the complicity of the news media of not putting out the information that's needed, whether it's, sharing the information on the manifesto of the shooter, whether it's being disingenuous, and like you said, not looking for all the high profile, clickbaity crimes out there, the misreporting on the number of shootings in schools and things like that. There's just so much complicity between the news media and some of the law enforcement agencies and everything else actually giving us raw numbers. It's hard to be able to make informed decisions on a lot of this stuff and for people to really understand it because they're not getting the real raw data and numbers.
Yeah, no, it makes a big difference. On our website at crimeresearch.org, we've gone through a lot of problems, biases, and FBI crime data that's there. I've been using FBI data for 40 years. I don't believe a lot of the data that they put out now these days because I think there's political biases in the government data. And we have detailed discussions in the research section on our website. And people don't need to take our word for it. We have all the evidence there so that people can double check it themselves.
And they need to be checking it. Now, I know that I sent you the link to the other bill that we talked about, you and I talked about on the phone here recently, which was the red flag law, the new red flag law in Alaska. Did you by any chance have a chance to look through that or take a look at it?
No, I haven't looked at that one, but I mean, I've testified before a number of state legislatures on red flag laws, and I'm happy to try to help out
Yeah.
on that. I mean,
Well, they're all very
basically,
similar.
I mean, I can go and talk about it for a minute if you want me to, and that is, look, all the states, including Alaska, have what are called civil commitment or involuntary commitment type laws. And that is, if you think somebody's a danger to themselves or others, you call the police. Police will come out. And if the police think that there's a reasonable chance, which is like about a 20% chance, that the person is in fact a danger to themselves or others, the police can take them in for a psychiatric evaluation. And depending upon the state, it can be 2 or 3 usually experts. And if the experts agree that there's a reasonable chance that the person is in fact a danger to themselves or others, there can be an immediate hearing. And if the person can't afford a lawyer, one will be provided and evidence will be examined there. Witnesses will be cross-examined. And depending upon the state, some places just the preponderance of the evidence, and others it's higher standards that are required. A judge then has a wide range of options. He can go and say, look, I'm concerned, but if you see mental health care expert, we'll have you come back in a week or 2 and we'll reevaluate the situation. The judge can take away the person's driver's license if he thinks the person might drive a car through a crowd of people, or he can take away the person's gun. Or in the most extreme case, he can involuntarily commit the person for psychiatric help. The thing is, with red flag laws, all those safeguards are removed. The only thing that happens to the person also is you take away their gun. So these are primarily used for concerns about suicide. But, if somebody is suicidal, do you think simply taking away their gun will stop them from committing suicide? That there are not other ways for them to go and commit suicide? There are no mental health care professionals involved in this process. There's no hearing. All the judge sees when he's making a decision is a written complaint from somebody. He doesn't talk to the person who made the written complaint. He doesn't talk to the person who the complaint is being made about. He just sees a written piece of paper. I have it's maybe a month later, there's a court hearing, but no lawyer is provided for you. I've talked to lawyers involved in these things. They say the fees can start at like $10,000 on up. So let's say you've been accused of this. You may want to keep your guns, but are you going to pay $10,000 to keep your guns from being temporarily taken away from you? The vast majority of people don't pay for it. Don't go in without a lawyer. So you're in against a lawyer on the other side, the prosecutor, and you have no lawyer. And so, I have a friend of mine, Andrew Pollack, who lost his daughter at the Parkland school shooting, and he actually ran the Crime Prevention Research Center while I was at the Department of Justice. But anyway, Andy when he moved, he didn't want to live in Florida anymore because of the memory of his daughter. He moved to rural Oregon. At the same time he moved there were some people from California who moved in next door to him, who basically hate him politically. And so, first of all, there was a property dispute. They claimed that he was using their property. They lost that. And after that, they went and brought a red flag law case against him, where they put in a written complaint saying that he was dangerous and threatening to them. When a judge finally heard the case, the judge said, look, there's no threat. Why did you even file this written complaint to begin with? There's no threat. You haven't made any evidence of any threat that he's made here. You just can't say there's a threat. You have to go and say he made a threat in some way. And they didn't even, and the judge didn't even require that Andy had to be in, provide his side of the case.
Yeah, and using him that way. And that's what we're afraid of. We're afraid of that. That's exactly what we're afraid of. Dr. Lott, we got to go. We're going to jump back into the radio. I'd like to talk to you again here in a couple, 3-4 weeks, if you got time, and we'll continue this discussion. Thank you so much, as always, for coming on board. We appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
Good to talk with you. Thank you so much. Folks, we're out of time. We're going to jump back into it. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Here we go.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Duke Show. I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Duke Show.
The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun. This is for the body, this is for the blood.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Duke Show. Broadcasting live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station, and or FM translators. Broadcasting today from Fairbanks, where I will be out and about today, tomorrow, and Sunday for the Open North American Championships. We'll be calling the dog race this weekend. That is the longest running sled dog race in the world. Yes, even more than the Iditarod. They've been running it. This is the 78th running of the Open North American Championships. It should be a fun time. And if you're in Fairbanks, make sure you come on out and say hi. We're going to be out at the Dog Mushers Hall on Farmers Loop Road there doing the doing the show or doing the dog races and calling it out there. It should be a great time. And if you want to listen to that, by the way, and you're somewhere else in the state or you're out of state and you want to hear that, you can listen to it on the stream of the radio station up here in Fairbanks. That's KFAR 660 AM, which is KFARradio.com if you want to listen to the broadcast today. We just finished up with Dr. John Lott from the Crime Prevention Research Center. And I could have 2 hours. I hardly ever say anything when Dr. Lott's on because that guy is just a fountain of knowledge. And he has always got some great intel and great descriptors. I'd never heard him talk about the per capita school shooting rate from, comparing America to other places. Because all we ever hear in the news media, all we ever hear in places like, from The Guardian and all this other stuff. We've had commenters on YouTube and other places saying, you Americans are crazy and your love of guns and you're the reason you're the most violent or you're the most this or the most of that. And then it turns out, and Dr. Lott breaks it down like he just did, which if you just missed it, he was talking specifically that in the last 20 years in America, 24 years, because he says since 2020, since 20, what did he say? I'm sorry. He said since 2020. There you go. He said it has been, there's been 8 school shootings in America. Now, again, I know that's not what you hear. You keep hearing from Gun Violence Center and the research places in the news media that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shootings on schools, in schools. But what they don't tell you is that most of those, the majority of those, are crimes that happened after hours. Gangs shooting each other in the parking lot where they're meeting to do a drug deal, people going into a playground and committing suicide. All these things that have nothing to do with the students and the schools themselves. He said, if you look at the actual numbers for what is classified as a mass shooting, which is a shooting where 4 or more people are killed during school hours, during the school day. There are 8. It was from 2000. Thank you, Charlie. I thought for a moment there, I thought I lost my mind. So this is since 2000, 8 since 2000. He said, and then you compare that to, say, Germany. And Germany had 3. And you're like, well, look at us. We're just, but again, we have 4 times the population that Germany has. They have 80 million people. We have 330 million people in this country. And just like you wouldn't compare the overall murder rates in Alaska to the overall murder rates in Chicago, right? Or California, you shouldn't do that kind of comparison without looking at it on a per capita basis. So if Germany, for example, if you did a per capita analysis, Germany would have a 12 compared to our 8. Finland and Norway, where they have only 5.5 million people in those countries. It's 60 to 120 shootings for the same per capita basis. And he went on and on and on. I mean, that's a fascinating statistic. And it just goes to show you again how complicit the news media and, in a lot of cases, the reporting agencies for the government, including the FBI and others, are manipulating the statistics to show you the story that they want you to hear. That is part of the problem. You know, when they basically are saying there were 378 school shootings so far last year or in the last 2 years or whatever it is, again, they are counting every shooting that takes place on school and sometimes off school grounds, just close to a school. And whether or not there were students present, whether or not there were actually even anybody involved with the school, whether it was just some kind of dispute. He pointed out that in Chicago, where there are dozens of shootings every single weekend, they don't report those. They don't, nobody makes a big stir about that because most of them are criminal on criminal violence and nobody really cares. It doesn't stir you up. What stirs you up is the thought and the idea that somehow kids would be involved. And so when they throw those statistics out there about quote unquote school shootings, and you realize that the lion's share of them had nothing to do with students, had nothing to do with the school itself, took place on a school ground after hours, or were a suicide or something like that. It's not nearly as juicy. It's not nearly as clickbaity. It's not nearly as manipulative. It doesn't get them what they want. And that is problematic, to say the least. Problematic. Because if we don't have real true numbers, if we don't have a real true idea of where we're going and what's going on, we can't make solid decisions about that. And that's part of the problem. And that's why I love having Dr. Lott on the program, because he lays out that information. And by the way, in his discussion where he's saying now they can't even get the diaries of the manifestos of some of these shooters because, like, the Biden administration won't release it. The feds won't release some of this information even after the shooting's over and the perpetrator's been convicted or he's killed or whatever. They won't put this. Why not? Well, is it because in most of the diaries that he's seen, most of the manifestos that have been written, most of the writings of these guys, like he said, they're crazy, not stupid. They specifically choose areas that are gun-free zones. They specifically choose them for that very reason. He talked about the Nashville shooter. His first target was going to be a mall. The Nashville school shooter, his first target was going to be a mall until he saw that there were armed mall cops basically at the mall. And then he decided to go to a school. There was that other school shooting, and I can't remember which one it was right now, where the shooter, it was actually reported that the shooter scoped out and was going to another school until he saw that there again were armed guards at that school. And then he decided to move on to the school that had no armed guards. Because again, they're crazy, not stupid. They're going for maximum kill count, maximum body count. That's what they're looking for. And it's, the answer continues to be gun-free zones. The answer continues to be from a lot of these things, if we only had, universal background checks, if we only had a gun ban, if we only had all this other stuff. I mean, how's that gun ban working out for countries like Germany, like France, like, all these other countries that are in the EU where they have absolutely no gun rights and, but yet these things still happen. I mean, the Charlie Hebdo terrorist attack is just one of the prime examples. You haven't been able to own a gun in France forever as a private citizen. I mean, any real kind of gun. And yet they went in there and if you're going to go big. And they went in full auto AKs, everything else, did all that stuff. I mean, again, disarming the populace is not the answer if you want to stop bad people doing bad things. That's the whole point. Disarming the populace doesn't help. But of course, now they're blaming, the U.S. for a lot of this stuff. For example, Tom Knighton over at Bearing Arms has got this latest article up from yesterday talking about how it's the lax U.S. gun laws that are now blamed for all the violence that's going on in Haiti. I mean, cannibalism. There is, if you haven't been watching what's going on in Haiti, it is like, I mean, it's just a microcosm of what, if you've ever one of those guys who theorized, what would it look like for a societal collapse? Well, there you go. Cannibalism. But here you go. It is kind of crazy, but the Guardian's got a point. The Guardians, they want to make sure that they know, exactly who to blame is on this. As Haiti's plunged into violent chaos, images of gang members with high-powered rifles, pump-action shotguns, or automatic weapons in the street of Port-au-Prince have become ubiquitous. But this weaponry is not made in Haiti. It's not made in Haiti. It comes directly from the U.S., likely to have originated from states with lax firearms laws, many traffic from Haiti to Haiti from Florida. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. To continue to talk about this, they say that there could be as many as 500,000 small arms in Haiti, where they have a disarmament commission of all things. And they think, that these are all from the U.S. This is almost all this from the... Well, first and foremost, I'd just like to tell you that you're not getting a whole lot of automatic weapons from the legal market in Haiti. Right? I mean, look, Haiti's been a train wreck forever. Right? I mean, Haiti is it's a hot mess. But this whole lax gun law thing, that is just insanity. I mean, people are, even if it was true, even if it was that they were doing these for straw purchases and other things, they're already breaking the law by doing the straw purchases. So what good is one more law going to do for you? I mean, they're not buying these they're not going into Joe's gun store and buying a full auto, whatever, AK, AR, M60. They're coming from somewhere else. Again, this goes back to the whole Charlie Hebdo thing. Remember, you couldn't buy a gun in France. You couldn't own a gun in France. Yet all of a sudden, all these guys showed up with AK-47s. I guarantee you they weren't going next door to the Guns R Us and buying full auto AKs. Again, bad people are going to do bad things. To blame law-abiding citizens who just want to retain their rights and do this kind of is insane. But that's what they do. Time and time again. All right. We're going to continue here, but I want to open up the phone lines for the next segment, 907-433-3150. If you want to give me your thoughts on this, Willie Waffle is going to be coming up in the next segment at the end of the show. I guess not in the next segment, but at the end of the show as well. So we will continue with him here in just a moment. Your phone call's up next, then Willie Waffle. It's the weekend. Yeah, baby. Firearms Friday. We'll continue in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. We're back at our, oh, shoot. There we go. Too many bells and whistles. Too many. It's always so hard on when I'm traveling because I got to click so many buttons to get the things, get the things scored away. Let me see if there's any comments here. I turn that down. I don't need to have that right now. Okay, let me see what else you got going on. Jeannie says they certainly don't want to let the public know the truths. It hurts the narrative. Yeah. Haiti gangs walking around the Capitol shooting the police and anyone they feel like. Yeah, I mean, literally cannibals. I mean, I just can't. There's like cannibalism. Yeah, and Brian says likely, but no proof. That's how they get. I mean, that's how they get away with it, right? They use the term like, "Oh, it's likely that they're coming from the U.S." Well, I mean, it's likely that I might win the lottery tomorrow. I mean, I don't know how likely, but it is likely because I haven't bought a ticket. You know. Brian says, "I wonder where the Guardian stands on the guns that were sent to Mexico through official channels under the Juan's administration." That is a good question. That's Operation Fast and Furious, where they were intentionally letting guns walk across the border to gangs with the express intent, they said, of arresting and stopping it, but of course never doing so, and then throwing the gun dealers who they coerced into selling these guns to those people under the bus. Just go Google Fast and Furious, Operation Fast and Furious, and guns in Mexico, and you'll find it out. Debbie says, and how are you like being here in Fairbanks? I wish I was back home. That's just, I mean, it's just, again, not that I don't love people here in Fairbanks. I miss the people. I always miss the people. I do not miss the place. I miss my mountains. I've gotten too used. I got my mountains. I can see the ocean from my house. I love all that. And it was 38 degrees. Yeah, 36 degrees or something yesterday at home. And when I got here, it was 1 degree. I'm just not a fan. I'm just not a fan of the deep cold and the dry and the no mountains. It's just personal preference, I guess. Chris asked me if I brought some coffee mugs up to Fairbanks with you. No, but when I come back for the outdoor show in April, the outdoor show is 5 weeks away right now. I will bring some coffee mugs and some coffee. So if you want to come see us out at the outdoor show, I will have those up for sale then. I'm scrolling backwards here. It's a disservice to the people for the media to control what we see and hear, knowing that the U.S. isn't the only country that has this problem. Again, talking about the per capita shootings at schools, as Dr. Lott pointed out, that is exactly great. And Brian did ask a question early on that we didn't get to from Dr. Lott. He said, clarify for me, please, how long have teachers been able to carry in schools? 20 years is what he said to begin with. 20 years teachers have been carrying in schools. And I don't know if he mentioned the first place that it would happen, but it's been 20 years. Yeah. So it's good. Okay. People are the best thing. Yeah. Yeah. Debbie said she surely enjoyed the mountains while you were there. Yeah. Why do you think the Mat-Su is exploding? Why do you think the Mat-Su is the fastest growing community in the state? I'll tell you why. Because it's super nice there. That's why. That's why it's the fastest growing community in the state, because it's super nice there. I love it. All right. We're going to be, we're 20 seconds out. We're going to rejoin the radio here in just a second. And right there. Okay. We put this down there. Okay. All right. We're going to rejoin. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Phone lines are open if you want to sound off. Let's do it. Here we go. Right now. Okay. So sorry about that. I've got 3 mice, 2 keyboards, plus my laptop, 3 screens. It's a mess whenever I'm traveling. The worst part is I always have to re-educate myself and remind myself how to do everything. I only do it 3 or 4 times a year when I'm broadcasting remotely. So anyway, welcome back to the program. Thank you for coming on board. It's so beautiful. It's we're ready to go. It's Firearms Friday. We were just talking about Haiti and how it's likely. I love the word likely. Brian points out that in that article that I was just reading parts of it to you, when it comes down, he said, that it's just likely that the guns came from America, but no proof, quote unquote, lightly. And that's how journalists get away with it. That's how they get away with all that speculation and inserting their own opinion in those kind of things. It's likely, just like it's likely that I might hit the lottery tonight. I mean, it's how likely? It doesn't say how likely, but likely. I would have to buy a ticket to the lottery first, but it's likely that I could, Oh, yeah. Sidestep, Brian asks, this is a sidestep. Do both the House and the Senate have to override SB 140? The answer to that is yes. It's a 3/4 vote of both bodies. What he's talking about is the governor did veto that education spending bill last night. And they've already said they're calling for a vote, I think this afternoon. They're going to try and override his veto. We'll see what happens with that. Let me just say that I'm not confident that the Republican majority in the House is going to hold the line. I'll just say that for nothing. I'm just not confident that they're going to hold the line on that. I mean, maybe they will. Maybe they'll surprise me. But at this point, I'm not convinced that they got it to do it. I'm sure we'll be talking about that on Tuesday. Now, a reminder, because I am here at the dog races and I'm doing everything else, and usually I just bomb back home on Sunday night, getting home at 11 o'clock or whatever, to 11:30, and then getting up and doing the show the next day. I'm getting too old for that. So I'm actually going to be traveling Monday morning instead, and I took the day off. And so I will not be here on Monday. There will be alternate programming across the state, depending on where you are, on Monday. I will be back on the air on Tuesday. And I know people already sent me emails about, oh, you can't. I'm sorry. I'm getting to that point to where I just cannot stand around outside in the cold, broadcast for 3 days, and then immediately climb into my car. Within 10 minutes of the dog races being over, I'm packing my stuff. I hit the car and I hit the road, and then go home and remain and be cognizant the next morning, where I actually can hold a cohesive discussion. That's just how it is. So I'm sorry. I decided to take the easy route. I'm just going to take the day off and take my time. So there you go. All right. What else we got here in the last few minutes? We got about 7 minutes or so here before we're going to be joined by Willie Waffle for the weekend movie review. We talked about the DOD, the the guy from the DOD in this. I haven't actually watched this video yet. There's a video available if you want to go watch this James O'Keefe, Project Veritas thing where the DOD guy who works for the Secretary of Defense's office says he'd love to repeal the Second Amendment and have the National Guard go out and collect all the guns. Again, not a shocking admission to most of us, and probably won't make a splash in any way, shape, or form. But, the video's out there right now. You can go to Project Veritas as well. I know Guns, Truth About Guns has got the video up as well, and several other places. Let me just ask you this. I don't know if you saw these comments. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not I'm not a huge fan because, again, I don't like the bombastic, in-your-face style that she has. It's not that I disagree with a lot of I disagree with some of it, but it's just kind of the style, right? It's a stylistic choice more than anything else. But Greene is now taking some heat from some of her fellow Congress critters. And I just got to say, over one of her comments, Haley Stevens writes, "I'm concerned about the mental health of my colleague from Georgia and would like the Capitol Police to address her dangerous threats in my workplace. Just as we would in any school or job site, we cannot not let calls for gun violence go unchecked." Dean Phillips says, Representative Dean, if suggesting Second Amendment rights should be used against Democrats doesn't immediately compel a GOP leader to take disciplinary action, I suggest Congress takes action against them both. This madness must be addressed or violence will ensue. So what did she say? What did she say that it's got them all up, got their panties in a twist over all this thing? Well, according to Newsweek, here's what it says. While not in agreement with Abrams' stance on vaccinations, Greene then transitioned and moved on to the gubernatorial candidate's stance on guns and the Second Amendment, saying the next thing she talked about was grabbing people's guns. She hates Georgia's Second Amendment rights. She wants to stop constitutional carry. Greene continued offering advice to Georgia's current governor and state lawmakers, urging them to pass and sign legislation to combat Abrams' call for grabbing people's guns. This is Stacey Abrams, the gal from Atlanta. She went on to say, ultimately, the truth is, it's our Second Amendment rights, our right to bear arms, that protects Americans and gives us the ability to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government, she said. And I hate to use this language, but Democrats, they're doing exactly what our founders talked about when they gave us the precious rights that we have. That's what she said. And that's a call for gun violence? That's a call that Second Amendment rights should be used against Democrats? Do you need a lesson in grammar and reading? I mean, it makes no sense. That's what she said. I hate to use this language, but Democrats, they're doing exactly what our founders talked about when they gave us the precious rights that we have. That the Second Amendment, it protects Americans and gives us the ability to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government. She didn't say go out and use them on Democrats. Oh, baby. She did say they're acting tyrannical. She did say that they want to strip us of our rights. She didn't say go out with pitchforks and torches and do anything. Again, you have to remember that the Second Amendment is an implicit threat against tyranny. It's an implied threat. Because we are armed, we have the ability to defend ourselves. It just keeps a reminder. And like I said, although I don't necessarily agree with the way she speaks a lot of times, but there's nothing wrong with what she just said there. I have said something very similar on this show on many occasions. That ultimately the Second Amendment, our right to keep and bear arms, it protects Americans and gives us the ability to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government. She's not saying anything that any of the framers and founders of this nation said. She's not saying anything different from what they said. And she said, Democrats today, they're doing exactly what the founders talked about, trying to strip us of our rights, trying to keep us in the dark, come on. This is not rocket surgery here. Oh, but no, they've got to make hay. And I'd be interested to see if Haley Stevens or Dean Phillips actually send out a fundraising letter on this. I really would. I'd be interested to see if any of the members of Congress that are calling for the Capitol Police to come, they're swatting her essentially. I'd be really surprised if they didn't put out a fundraising letter saying we need to prevent Haley from, or we need to prevent Marjorie from, being able to, please send us money so that we can continue to fight against this Republican menace that's going on out there and doing all the, it just would not surprise me at this point. Would not surprise me if that's where they're going with this. All right. We got to continue. We got Willie Waffle coming up next. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Don't forget, you can always join us on Facebook as well. Facebook.com/Michael Duke Show. If you want to be part of it, come on out and see us. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
All right. I mean, I just read this and I was like, you need to call the Capitol Police because she's threatening violence against them, because she just said you're doing exactly what they said. I mean, it's just, oh man. Wikipedia. Debbie's just posting the Wikipedia reference to Project Veritas. Is an American far-right activist group. The group produces deceptively edited videos of its undercover operations, which uses secrets recording in an effort to discredit mainstream media organizations and progress. Yeah, that's a problem with Wikipedia. Wikipedia's got some good stuff, but Wikipedia is, again, it's edited by the public. So there you go. And says Brian, the Democrats, some Republicans are doing the same with the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and the Sixth Amendment, to name a few. Yeah, it's exactly what I'm talking about right there. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Is that kind of stuff. It's good. Debbie says, having a day off now and then is good. Enjoy the drive home. Yeah, I mean, it is. Brian says, Greg says, as we age, it gets harder. I mean, I still could do it, but it is tough, man. Those Monday mornings are, a full day after I've worked all 3 days out in the cold, which I'm not as used to anymore as I used to be. Then I drive home, crawl into bed, and get up 5 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours later. It's a tough thing. It's nothing that earth-shattering that I will miss. Let's put it that way. There's nothing earth-shattering that I will miss by not being here on Monday. Watch there be something earth-shattering on Monday or Sunday that happens that I don't, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Okay. Guys are awful quiet this morning. Awful quiet. What else is going on here? I'm scrolling back to see if there's anything I missed. The border crossings. Man, I've been watching videos. I'm not normally one for national stuff, but I have been watching a few videos on the border crossing, and a few of my favorite YouTubers like Decoy Voice. He's covered that pretty closely. There's been a couple other videos that are going on. It's really spooky, man. When you watch a number of people crossing the border, and it's not just about the folks who are, the Mexicans or South Americans, the Chinese, the number of people from China, the whole group of guys from Syria that were all military-age males, all dressed in 511 gear, which, if you don't know, 511 is a brand name, but it's favored in the military tactical community. It's like tactical clothing. And this guy was wearing a brand new 511 jacket, which is like I couldn't afford to buy it. It's like a $300 jacket. And he's wearing head to toe all this stuff, and he's from Syria. I'm like, what? Where did you? It's spooky. It's spooky. Let's just put it that way. Not a subject that I'm super. It makes me glad that I don't live in Arizona or Texas or anywhere down there, because I would not want to have to deal with that on my doorstep. Now, granted, they are shipping some around the country, and we've got some here, but at least we're not on a border with those guys. That's some crazy, crazy stuff. Let me put it that way for nothing. Some crazy, crazy stuff. All right. I got buttons and bells and whistles and screens behind screens and 3 mice and the whole deal. Oh, all right. So who's coming out to see me this weekend at the dog races? Come out, say hi. I mean, I'll probably be busy, but you can at least wave and I'll wave back at you. You know, that's what we need to do. There we go. Make sure I just clicked something that I wasn't supposed to, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Good morning, Donna. Apparently, Donna Ardwin just joined. I didn't see her, but everybody sees her but me. Everybody else sees her. I don't know why. I think it's the screen that I'm on. It doesn't show me, the broadcaster doesn't show me everything. Okay. I guess that's it. We're all caught up. I'm waiting for the phone to ring here and buzz, and we'll have Willie Waffle on, and then we can do the weekend movie review. Kind of looking forward to it. We didn't get a chance today to talk about what's going to be happening next in the Rust trial, and we didn't talk about the Crumley case, the shooter from Michigan, the Michigan school shooter. His parents, dad got convicted as well. Both mom and dad got convicted of manslaughter for basically providing him with a firearm. It's heartbreaking. Again, I watched a lot more court TV than I wanted to, but it was heartbreaking to see how this kid was treated. I mean, he has to stand for his choices, but it was absolutely heartbreaking to see how this kid was treated in, it's a whole nother show. Let's put it that way. All right, here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Let's do it. Okay, weekend. Oh, man, my weekend's so busy this weekend. It's unfortunate, but I do enjoy the dogs. We're going to be doing the dog racing over at the Open North American Championships. We'll be calling the races, so come on out and join us at the Mushers Hall. If you're in Fairbanks, you want to come say hi, feel free to do that. Anyway, Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com, weekend movie reviewer extraordinaire. It's like he straps on his weekend movie reviewer chaps and sticks. They don't have any backs on them. I don't understand what that means, but there you go. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, me and John Cena showing it off, baby.
That's right. Just what? Hey, those are great pants. Don't turn around. Those are great pants.
Don't turn around. Don't turn around.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the entertainment news. I will say, again, not a huge fan of the Oscars. I really could care less. Although I did see, I mean, anybody who was not dead on the internet didn't miss the fact that Oppenheimer swept everything, which is kind of cool that a not a documentary, but a biography, kind of a biopic like that, with some great actors, did well. Hit me with all the awards there.
Yeah, well, and it was a popular movie that did well.
True.
And
I
think that's the big walk away or takeaway from the Oscars this year. You know, for the last several years. I mean, really, I want to say even for the last 10 or 15 years. You know, the big complaint has been, you know, all these small little movies that nobody ever sees are the ones that get nominated, and that's why people don't care about the Oscars. Well, this year you got Barbie, you got, you know, the Killers of the Flower Moon, the Scorsese movie. Right. You had Oppenheimer,
Godzilla,
so, you know,
right? The Godzilla,
yes. Yes, walking away there. I mean, excuse me. Pardon me. I think that listen, the ratings went up a little bit. I mean, it wasn't like this big, massive jump. So I think that the sweep by Oppenheimer. I mean, not total sweep, but Best Actor for Cillian Murphy, Best Supporting Actor for Robert Downey Jr., Best Director for Christopher Nolan. Best Movie for Oppenheimer. I mean, they really walked away with a ton of stuff.
The biggies, right? Those are the biggies, right? Best movie, best director, best actor, best supporting actor. That's pretty much sweeps the top four.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways it was time. Like, Christopher Nolan is extremely well respected, extremely talented director and producer, and a lot of people said this could be the chance to really give him his Oscars because he didn't get them for anything else. Robert Downey Jr., a guy who'd been nominated a couple times before, had never won. This might be the chance to give him something. So I think that you had a little bit of that at play as well. So, you had a very popular movie. You had a lot of really big names in there that people supported and liked and wanted to see win. And, 2 and 2 equals magic.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. And, that would be good. Again, I'm still not going to watch the Oscars, but it does make me want to watch Oppenheimer more than I did previously. So it's good. All right. What else we got? You've got your favorite show, one of your favorite shows, The Bear, which you said I should go watch, and I haven't seen it. A brother dies owning a restaurant. His 5-star chef brother comes and tries to run this little podunk restaurant, essentially. And is it hilarity ensues? Chaos ensues? What's going on?
It's all of it, man. Okay, like it is some hilarity, some extremely poignant drama, some absolute chaos, and that's why I really love the show. It seems to hit every note and it hits it perfectly. And we had 2 seasons so far. It's on a roll, and a 3rd season we already knew was being shot and is in the can, or not in the can yet, but will be coming very soon. And then late last night, we got the news.
Okay.
They're secretly also making season 4 at the same time. So there are going to be 2 more seasons of my favorite show, The Bear. And I'm telling you, you got to see it, man.
You got to watch it.
And I'll tell you what, I think you need to see it from the beginning, because season 1 clearly feeds into season 2. It is this journey, and not only just this journey of this one guy and his family, but it's everybody in the restaurant. That's what I love so much about this series. Every person's life is so invested in this restaurant, and we see why they're doing it, why they care, what's driving them, the struggles that they've had, what they're trying to overcome, and just the interactions between them, which aren't always clean and fun. Right. I'm telling you, you gotta see The Bear.
Okay, all right. How many waffles?
The Bear is like a 10 waffle show.
Okay. Oh, well. Okay. All right. Okay. We're going into the Wayback Machine. Salem's Lot. Now,
I know, right?
My God, this thing has already had like 3. Is this the 3rd remake or the 4th remake of this?
Oh my God, something like that. I mean, wasn't there? There was like a mini series, and there was the movie, like back in the late 70s or something. Well, they made another movie. It was originally supposed to be released back in September of 2022, but then they delayed it until spring of 2023. And no, it did not come out in spring of 2023. We know that because we've never seen it. And it just kind of quietly went away, and it just dropped off the schedule. And people were worried. Well, Warner Brothers and Discovery, they've shelved the Batgirl movie. They're shelving the Coyote versus Acme movie, and maybe this one's going to go the same route. But no, this week it was announced you're going to see it on the new Max streaming service.
Okay. Well, and the good news is this movie might actually be good and scary, because the people who are putting together is the production team behind the Conjuring universe, right?
Yeah, and I think that's why it's not being shelved like those other 2 movies. I think, the folks from the Conjuring, and also a lot of folks who are involved with the It films, they make a lot of money for Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yeah.
And you might not want to upset them by chucking their movie in the garbage. And so this one will live on whereas the other two are still very, very sore about their finality.
Exactly. When are they supposed to get? When are they supposed to hit the stream?
Not out there yet. They're going to have to figure out when to put it out. If I had to guess, I would think around October. I think that would be a good time to bring it out.
Okay. Well,
we'll see.
You're just guessing, but that's okay.
Yep.
Robert Pattinson. Didn't think I'd like him as the Batman. Turned out that was a pretty good show. I enjoyed that movie with Robert Pattinson as the Batman. It was surprisingly good. Colin Farrell. A lot of just a lot of good players in it, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was well done. And they were actually putting together a part 2.
Yeah, and it's still going to happen, but you're going to have to wait around a while. See, it was originally scheduled for October of 2025, but because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike, and the fact that you need to have that script and all your actors signed up before you really go into production, because it's going to be such a complicated production. DC Studios has pretty much delayed it. They're like, listen, there's no way we're going to get it done by that time, between all the production elements, all the special effects work that has to be done, everything you put into it. This is going to come out in October of 2026.
2.5 years from now. 2.5 years. Man, we could have the zombie apocalypse between now and then. I don't even know, All right, well, it's too bad, but I'll watch it when it comes out. I really enjoyed the first one. Surprisingly, it was one of I thought it was one of the better DC hero movies for sure. Out of the new DC.
Well, and that's the funny part. It's kind of not technically part of the DC universe. Right. It's some other alternate universe. It's in the multiverse, and I bet right now they're wishing that it was part of the regular universe. Yeah. Because their attempts to revive Batman were really in the Flash movie, and I don't know if you remember, the Flash movie really stunk up the place.
Yeah, no, it's too bad. But I do like a darker, grittier Batman. I do dig that. So, I was a fan of the Frank Miller Batman. So for the nerds out there, they know what I'm talking about. Nobody else does. But the Frank Miller Batman was I'd like to see that. And I think Pattinson that's his interpretation is what my take is on it. So it's
and that was an inspiration a lot for Christopher Nolan as well.
Oh, I agree. The Christopher Nolan, Christian Bale, that was kind of although I didn't think it was gritty enough. I thought it was still pretty fancy. I thought the one with Pattinson was the grittier side. I did like that. All right. Neve Campbell. Nobody knows who she is except for, but
she used to be really famous.
I know. I was looking up something, and I mean, she was the it girl for like half a second. And she was in all the Scream franchises, and then of course she got kicked out of Scream 5, 6, whatever it was, because she wanted more money and she thought she was hot stuff, and they said no. And but she may be coming back.
Well, she's coming back because they need her now. So that it's funny how those things work. But the Scream 6 was really kind of moving away from the traditional Scream characters and the traditional Scream actors that we had seen over the years. And Neve Campbell said, "Hey, listen, I'd be interested in being in the movie, but I don't think you really are truly valuing what I bring to the Scream franchise.
Right.
I'm one of the OGs, as they say." And the studio said, "We're not going to pay you OG money. So hey, have a good time." Well, since Scream 6 came out, there's been a little bit of a controversy. I don't know how much you know about this. So one of the stars, Melissa Barrera, has pretty much been fired because she said some very controversial things about Israel and the war that's been playing out in Israel.
Right.
And so the studio said, "We don't need that." Amazingly enough, at the same time, Jenna Ortega, the other star, said, "I'm really not going to be available because I'm making the second season of Wednesday for Netflix, so I'm out too." Which, okay, that was nice and convenient.
Right.
There's some people who think that she walked out in solidarity with her co-star. But she had a landing pad, unlike her co-star, so she's out. So now you're left with, well, who's going to run the place? Who's going to do the next movie? Well, they're bringing in the original writer, the creator of Scream, Kevin Williamson, who has supported Neve Campbell, who, when she wasn't getting paid, said she should be getting paid. Well, now that he's in charge, he's bringing her back, and Nevi's getting her cashola.
Well, good. I guess she'll be coming back and it'll all be good then. This is, again, let this be a lesson to you, all you actors that listen to this show. Don't post on social media. All right.
That's right. Just stay away from
stay
social
away.
media.
All right.
Put pretty pictures,
Yeah.
don't say anything political. I wouldn't, if I was, I wouldn't even talk about like sports at this point.
Yeah.
If I was an actor, I would just be like, hey, here's my dog. Isn't my dog cute?
Exactly.
Here's a picture of the swans. Aren't they awesome?
Right. Exactly.
Stay away from.
All right. Well, we got talkie, so we're down to the last 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes here. I got Arthur the King and Apples Never Fall. Give it to me.
Okay, I'll give you a quick Arthur the King. Nice movie in theaters. Mark Wahlberg, right? He is this endurance team kind of athlete who's had a lot of failure. He feels bad. Things haven't worked out, and he's got one last chance at this race. And nobody really wants to be on this team because of what's happened in the past. So it's a motley crew of ragtag underdogs, my friend. And who joins them but this little dog that they're nice to in town? And now they're racing across the Dominican Republic with this dog, and everybody's paying attention. And they're rooting for the dog and the team. And we have to wonder, will they pull it off? Will this finally pull them together as a team? It is the most stereotypical, obvious, feel-good sports movie you've ever seen, and it's got a cute dog, and darn it, it works. I'm going 3 waffles, all right?
It works, yeah. I mean, we joke about Mark Walt, but he's got some chops. He does some good stuff. So it's
he does well. You usually don't do well next to the cute dog, and he knows his role here.
Yeah,
and he's playing with the dog. He's letting the dog have his moments, and he finds other moments to act.
Good. Apples Never Fall. I actually saw the trailer for this, and I was like, whoa. Annette Bening, Sam Neill. Give me the rundown here about just under 2 minutes.
This is so good. I am sucked in, okay? It's a 7-episode mini-series on the Peacock streaming service, and it is Annette Bening and Sam Neill are this married couple that ran a very, very famous tennis academy in West Palm Beach. They've since retired, and Annette Bening goes missing, just into thin air. And now their adult children are trying to figure out, where did mom go? And they think dad had something to do with it. And what you're seeing is all the events that led up to it, as well as the investigation that's going on. So you see other suspicious characters that are in their lives. We learn about how dysfunctional this family is and why it looks like dad is probably guilty of sin, but we don't know yet. And that's what's drawing you in. What's going to happen? What is going to be that final ending with all this other mess that you see around it? Dude, I'm at like 3.5 waffles, and I might go to 4 if this thing ends perfectly, okay? That's all I'm saying.
Well, I saw the trailer. The family looks like they're horrible. I mean, the kids
are.
The kids are all horrible, and I'm just like, man, maybe Sam Neill did murder. I don't mean, who knows? But I love all the actors in it. I think it looks like an interesting premise. I'm ready to go. All right, Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you coming on board. Folks, Monday, remember, I am off on Monday. I will be traveling home. I will see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Yeah, I mean, I'm watching this thing, and I'm like, first it's like, oh, mom and dad, and oh, mom disappears, and dad's distraught, and then the kids come in, and oh, but all the kids are freaking horrible to each other, and I'm like, what is going on? This just looks like, I mean, am I watching The House of Usher again? I mean, it's just that kind of horribleness, man.
It really is. And when you watch the series, dad ain't so great either, okay? It's not like he's some put upon dude. He's earned the anger and the enmity that he is getting from his children. And you're right. I mean, it just you just kind of just wallow in the dirt. I'm just gonna put it out and say what it is, right? And every throughout the series, you're starting to see, well, there was this problem and this disagreement and that disagreement, and dad and this guy don't get along because of this. And you start to kind of like wonder, who did do it? Like, what is going on? I'm even willing to throw out, did mom just decide to take off one day because she just got sick of it?
Right.
We don't know.
It's just Gone Girl all over again, right? I mean, is it?
Yeah.
It looks interesting, but you're saying it is fantastic. What has it got? 3 episodes out now, something like that? 4?
So it's going to be 7 episodes. I think they're all out there. I'm working my way through. I'm up to like number 3. So I'm just excited.
Are you a Guy Ritchie fan?
I am a Guy Ritchie fan.
So Terry and I watched The Gentleman for the first time here about a week and a half ago.
Okay.
We hadn't seen it. Oh my God, so good. Such a good Guy Ritchie.
Is it better than the movie?
No, we watched the movie. We hadn't seen the movie yet, so we watched the movie. And then we happened to see that on Netflix, Guy Ritchie
doing a series.
He's actually doing a series on Netflix that is The Gentleman in the Gentleman universe. So maybe we should recap that next week. Have you watched any of it yet?
I have not, because I was not a big fan of the movie. But now maybe I need to check out the series. Maybe I got to fit it in as I'm eating my popcorn watching Apples Never Fall.
What why didn't you like the first movie? I'm just curious.
It just didn't hit with me. It just didn't hit with me. I found it a little preposterous. It didn't connect with me. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, if I remember, this is Hugh Grant in this thing too,
right?
Which I wasn't all that blown away with. Yeah.
Hugh Grant and Matthew McConaughey and the guy from Sons of Anarchy. I've just forgotten his name. So I mean, I thought it was fantastic, but that's just me.
Okay.
I'm a huge Guy Ritchie fan. I'll watch that guy. If he did commercials, and I watched all of them. But if he did, I don't know, rode in the sidewalk in mud puddles, I'd watch it. He's that good. He's that good. All right. Well, maybe we'll get a report from you then next week on what's going on with The Gentleman on Netflix. And I guess that's it, my friend.
And next week Ghostbusters comes out, so I'm excited for that.
Okay.
Wow, that was a very, very awkward pause.
The best part of the last Ghostbusters was Chris Hemsworth. I mean, really.
Yes.
He was the best part of that whole movie. The rest of the movie was like I could take it or leave it, but he was the best part of that whole movie. And I'm just sorry to say that stop retreading old retreads. Nobody needs
I will say though, this is a new aspect of the Ghostbusters that was really established with Paul Rudd and Finn Wolfhard and a few other folks in a movie that they did that really kind of, I think, got lost in the whole COVID shuffle, and so now we're moving forward. And they've got another sequel with that group of Ghostbusters, and I'm not giving anything away. Anybody who's seen the Paul Rudd Ghostbusters knows that our original Ghostbusters are part of the gang.
Okay.
And I think that's what really takes it up a notch. And, I'm not going to say anything, but it looks like maybe the female Ghostbusters are going to show up here in this movie as well. We're going to have a lot of Ghostbusting going on.
We got a lot of crossover. All right. Well, everybody's getting paid. I guess we'll find out. You'll tell me next week. All right, Willie. All right. Thanks so much. I appreciate it, folks. We're out of time. I will see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.